Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared Quartermatch, and today I'm doing a review of The Prophet of Edan by Philip Chase, the second book in the Edan Trilogy, the first one being The Way of Edan. And this spectacular follow-up to The Way of Edan ramps up the action twofold from the first book. Right away, we have a very exciting prologue where we're introduced to dragons. um, Another fascinating fantasy staple that Chase kind of feeds us fantasy addicts our needs, to have dragons on. It's like on some level, if I'm not reading about a dragon at some point during my reading journey, then I'm not satisfied. I like dragons, and uh, this book fits the bill. um, Death and destruction follow in their wake, and they are fearsome. You know, on some level, though, I kind of felt bad for the dragons. I mean, they're controlled, and so this kind of brings me into how magic works on this world. In the first book, in the Way of Edan, we get an initial glimpse of the songs of origin, and that seems to be the means by which magic weaves itself into the world and all its creatures, great and small. And in the Prophet, we uh, we get like a greater explanation of how these songs work, and we see that those of great power are able to control greater beasts. And of course, like the supreme priest Bledla, the bad guy extraordinaire here, who truly believes that what he's doing is right, and he has the kind of power to control the mighty dragon. Um, I don't like that. Dragons aren't just mere beasts to be controlled by mortals. They they need to have their own agency and control their own destiny. I kid, of course. It's all part of the story in here, and it works very well. And so I couldn't stop thinking about that aspect of the magic and what it means to have that agency taken away like that. Um, and so I'll get more of that later. I'm digressing right now, but the dragons are part of the loving tropes that with fantasies past that just keep coming to us in these books. One of those, of course, is especially relative to dwarves. The dwarves, they hate water. Check. uh, they can forge cool weapons. Check. And the dwarf is a stalwart battle companion. Check. That this is not a complaint. This is a big sigh of relief that dwarves are back in fantasy action. You don't really read about them that much these days. So um, I was glad to see that. I was glad to see those familiar aspects of fantasy literature dealt with in a very convincing manner. And so um, that was, the dragons and the dwarves, very cool stuff. So meanwhile, we have this like huge world war going on in this book on this continent. It really covers the whole continent, and at least what we've seen, um, that for the map in the beginning of the book there. And so uh, there is like a decided clash of cultures, as nations need to like realign with traditional enemies or face possible annihilation. And the dragons rolling over nations, it kind of reminded me, like it's almost like a metaphor for the for like the German tanks rolling over Belgium and Poland and France and in World War II. It kind of had that feel to it. and like Tolan looks the nation of Tolan looks to conquer all. That's just kind of the imagery I got. Um, so and Chase, of course, continues to use like the cultural nomenclature from historical sources, um, which are very fun, and they give the societies he has created in these books, like that familiar flavor, but still exotic for a fantasy setting. Um, so and he also brings up a couple of heavy topics touched on in this volume. He brings up slavery. Not enough to really get into any heavy philosophizing in the story, but we could philosophize about it if you wish to. Um, Chase strictly focuses on story first, and leaves the reader wondering about these things on their own. And um, that kind of brings me back to the magic system here. Um, in the songs of origin in particular, because these like Bledler in particular, but even the main character Dave Raven is using the song to stealing the will of another creature. And you compare that, is that not a like another form of slavery? um and it's so far as done with beasts and creatures, and you wonder if it's gonna get to the point where it may be tried on humans, or dwarves or humans as well. And so those kind of things were running through my mind. The story hasn't gone there yet. I wonder if it's going to go there in the next book. I don't know, but so far it's it focuses on beast, but you know it's also dragons. And do dragons not have some kind of sentience? Those are the questions that came up, in my head as I'm reading this. Um, so, what kind of form can this magic take, and can it relate to slavery? Because there is traditional slavery in this book as well, and that is dealt with and brought up in some of the chapters in here. So it's done to further the story, and it's done well. So Chase also continues to explore religion, um, and its fallacies in this volume. With Bledla, the supreme priest, bad guy, it's easy to equate the way of Edan with the worst of like religious historical warmongering that's gone on in our own world. But he also equates Edan closely with the magic, and we see it's not so simple as there being one way to view this religion. And there's a not so subtle message revealed in passages like this one. I quote here. It says, "Religions were wrappings, and these wrappings were bound to decay over the centuries as the mending and patient truth abode beneath. If there was anything like a god, it was the eternal play between desire and the end of desire." And so that's just one little quote from the book that explores aspects of religion, and there's more in there too. There's plenty more in there that Chase plays around with, with various characters, and that's interesting to read about and fun to read about. And that last statement, it kind of seems to play on Buddhism a little bit, but presented as part of a fantastical um, story that we're reading about here. And I think it's very well blended in. The cultures are very well blended in, and this continent seems to like make sense in a historical and cultural conglomeration, the way that it's the way he puts together. And so that's it's all very the story uh, flows by very well. I like how everything came together. There's a couple of surprises in there that you were like, oh, okay, didn't see that one coming. Um, and also another favorite trope. There's of course there is a chosen one in here, and so he plays with that a little bit too. I like how certain things came about in the novel that I can't talk about because it would be spoilers. But um, this we get to the ending of this book, and I'm really really interested to see what he's going to do in the third book, because there's some nice stuff in here that keeps you on your toes and keeps you guessing. And so he's able to balance and blend the familiar staples and tropes of fantasy with a new um, look at how cultures and historical things can fit into a fantastical world that blends together very well. And so I'm in and keep us give us a few surprises along the way that really make it fun. So once again, that's my review of the Prophet of Edan. Um, so I recommend it highly. It's fun. It's great. It's the prose is nice. It flows very well. It touches on the fantasy we've known in the past, but still has a modern voice. And I'm enjoying it very much. Can't wait for the last and final installments in this trilogy. And so that's all for today. Pick up the Prophet of Edan if you haven't already. Most of you probably have. And I hope you enjoyed my review. I tried to not watch any other reviews of this before I did my own, just so I had my own thoughts. And so, with that said, be good to each other. Like and subscribe below. And thank you very much.